All right, so today we're diving deep into something that I think a lot of people are going to find super interesting. And that is this YouTube video called 5 Things Not to Do with Your Filipina.
Oh, okay.
And it's from this channel called Joy of the Jungle.
Interesting.
You actually shared this one with me, and you were saying that you're starting a relationship with someone from the Philippines.
That's right.
And you want to make sure that you are, navigating things respectfully, and you're not accidentally stepping on any toes.
Yeah, definitely. Because I know that there's a lot of cultural differences, and so I really want to do my best to just kind of be as respectful as I possibly can.
Right.
And I thought this would be a good way to kind of get a little bit more insight.
Right. So this deep talk is going to be all about getting those cultural insights and trying to figure out how we can avoid some of the common mistakes that people might make when they're navigating these intercultural relationships. And I've watched this video a few times, and I think the creator is like really passionate about helping people avoid those faux pas.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of cool to see her, share her expertise and her insights on this.
I think that's great. I mean, it's always great when you can have people from a certain culture be able to share what's important to them.
Exactly.
And kind of what their values are so that we can learn from that.
And one of the first things that she talks about is respecting her family.
Okay.
Which sounds simple enough on the surface.
Right.
But there's got to be more to that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, in Filipino culture, respecting family is a huge deal.
Right.
It's not just about, being nice to her mom and dad. It's about understanding that family is like the core of their society.
So, like, what does that actually look like?
For starters, family's not just mom and dad.
Right.
We're talking about aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. The whole extended family is considered really close.
Got it.
And their opinions carry a lot of weight.
So, like, would I need to, like, get approval from the entire extended family?
It's not necessarily about getting like formal approval, but it's more about recognizing that they're going to be involved in her life and in her decisions.
Right.
So including them, valuing their advice, showing that you respect them and their opinions, it's really important.
It's interesting because, growing up in kind of a Western culture, I feel like the emphasis on family is very different.
Oh, absolutely.
Like we love our families and everything.
Yeah.
But there is a sense of like individualism.
Right.
Where, you are encouraged to like kind of go your own way and forge your own path.
Exactly.
But it sounds like in Filipino culture is much more of a collective.
Very much so. It's about the family unit.
Yeah.
And supporting each other and being there for each other.
Interesting.
And, it's not just about like big decisions either, even just everyday things.
Okay.
Filipinos tend to be really close to their families. They talk to them all the time. They visit them often. So, if you're dating someone from the Philippines, you got to be prepared to be a part of that whole family dynamic.
So it's not just like a one-time thing of like meeting the parents and then you're good.
It's ongoing.
Got it.
It's a relationship that you're building with the whole family.
Okay, so I'm starting to understand a little better, like, how important the role of family is in Filipino culture.
Yeah, and, going back to the respecting her family thing, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, if you disrespect her family, it's like you're disrespecting her.
Right, because they're so interconnected.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing that the video talks about is public displays of affection.
Okay.
And she specifically advises against kissing in public.
Interesting.
And I thought that was interesting because I know in Western culture, like PDA is pretty normal.
Right. It's totally different. It's one of those things where what's considered normal or appropriate really depends on where you are in the world. In the Philippines, public displays of affection tend to be a lot more subtle.
Okay.
It's not that couples don't show affection.
Right.
It's just that it's expressed differently.
So it's not like they're not affectionate. It's just they have different ways of expressing it.
Yeah, maybe holding hands, a little bit of like touching arms or shoulders, but like full on making out in public, that's
got it.
Probably not going to fly.
That's really interesting. And, I think it's such a good point that like even something as simple as a kiss can have such different meanings in different cultures.
Absolutely. And it's not just about like what's acceptable or not. It's about understanding the underlying values.
Right.
So in Filipino culture, there's a strong emphasis on modesty and respect.
Okay.
And so being overly affectionate in public can be seen as like a lack of respect for those values.
So like even if you have the best intentions,
if
you don't understand the cultural context,
you could be sending the wrong message.
You could be sending the wrong message.
Right.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to something a bit heavier. The video talks about the dangers of sending money to someone you've just met online.
Okay.
And she specifically addresses the gold digger stereotype.
Right. And that's a really sensitive topic.
It is.
But it's important to talk about.
It is important, and I'm glad that we're talking about it because I think there are a lot of misconceptions out there.
Definitely.
So the video talks about, how some people might have this stereotype that women from the Philippines are just looking for a way to get money from Western men.
Right. And that's just not true.
It's a harmful stereotype.
It is. It's painting an entire group of people with a very broad brush.
Exactly.
And it's just not fair. I mean, there are definitely scams out there.
Of course.
And it's important to be aware of those.
Right.
But to say that all Filipinos are gold diggers is just ridiculous.
So how do we navigate that line then?
Well, I think it's about being cautious, but not letting stereotypes dictate your actions.
Okay.
So yeah, be aware of red flags, like someone asking for money early on in a relationship.
Yeah. That's never a good sign.
It's not. But also remember that everyone is an individual.
Right.
So get to know the person, look for a genuine connection.
Yeah.
And trust your gut if something feels off. It probably is.
And I think that's good advice for any relationship.
Absolutely.
Whether it's intercultural or not.
Yeah. Trust your instincts.
Yeah. So we've talked about family, PDA, online safety. What else does this video highlight?
Well, it's interesting because the video creator actually emphasizes this idea of avoiding stereotypes in general.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah, she's saying that you can't just assume things about someone based on their culture.
Right. Everyone's an individual.
Exactly. You have to treat each person as an individual.
And you can't just lump people into categories based on where they're from.
Exactly. It's like assuming that everyone who likes pizza also loves pineapple on it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Some might not.
Right.
The only way to know is to ask.
That's right.
And get to know them.
Get to know the individual.
As a person.
That makes sense. And I think that kind of leads into her final point.
Okay.
Which is about being sensitive to traditions and beliefs.
Right. And this is so important.
It is. It's about respecting that people might have different ways of seeing the world than you do.
Exactly. And the Philippines has such a rich and diverse culture.
Okay.
With so many interesting traditions and beliefs.
Like, what are some examples?
Well, for one thing, they have a strong emphasis on respect for elders.
Okay.
Like, you would never call an older person by their first name.
Oh, wow.
You would always use a title like Po or Opo.
Yeah.
Which is a sign of respect.
Interesting.
And they also have a deep sense of community.
Okay.
Like, they really value helping each other out and being there for each other.
So if I were dating someone from the Philippines,
yeah,
I would need to be prepared to kind of embrace that community aspect as well.
Exactly. And be respectful of those values.
Got it.
And of course, they have vibrant religious practices.
Right.
The majority of Filipinos are Catholic. And so religion plays a big role in their lives.
And so that would be something to be sensitive to.
Definitely. You don't have to convert or anything.
Right.
But just be respectful of their beliefs.
So basically what I'm hearing is that if you're going to be in a relationship with someone from the Philippines,
yeah,
it's about more than just, liking the same things or finding each other attractive.
It's much deeper than that.
It's about really understanding and appreciating their culture.
Exactly.
And their values.
Yeah, and being willing to learn and grow.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So this has been such an eye-opening conversation.
I'm glad.
We've covered a lot, and I think it's really helpful for our listeners who might be in similar situations.
Definitely.
Starting relationships with people from different cultures.
Absolutely.
And I think, one thing that I'm taking away from this is that it's all about communication.
Communication is key.
It is.
Like you said, you're not going to know all the nuances of every culture.
Yeah.
But if you're open to communicating with your partner, asking questions, being honest about what you do and don't understand,
then you can learn and grow together.
Exactly.
And avoid a lot of those potential pitfalls.
Absolutely.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
And for our listeners out there, think about the people in your life who come from different cultures.
Yeah.
How can you better understand and appreciate their perspectives?
That's a great question.
It is. It's something to think about.
Yeah.
All right. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.